Welcome to Backstage with Geoffrey Morrissey. I'm your host, Geoffrey Morrissey. When we started this show 5 years ago with Frank Turner as our first guest, I thought I had peaked. Today, however, I think I've hit a new high. Paul McCartney said about our guest today, anyone working with him is going to be half paralyzed by the occasion. I'm starting to relate to Sir Paul's words. Johnny Marr is our guest. Johnny, thank you for the time.
Thank you. Well, it's nice to be here. I guess Morrissey and Marr, we've reunited, right?
Well, I didn't want to make the joke.
I'll say it before anyone else says it. Get it out of the way.
Good, thank you. You took the pressure off of me, but a great reunion
Sweet.
indeed. But I was reading, as you've been sort of promoting Call the Comet, brilliant new album, you had said, I feel like it's now about what I'm doing rather than why I'm doing it. So walk me through that. Have you always been someone that it's sort of the act is before the intention? Were you ever sort of worried about the intention behind the work?
What I meant by that, Jeff, was in terms of the way the outside world is sort of perceiving what I do. Mm-hmm. Because when I said that, I was conscious that with my solo stuff, most people's concerns or questions to me were, why are you doing this? Why are you doing it now? Why are you doing what is it you're doing? But now it seems to be that they're just like, well, what is it he's doing? So the kind of academic side of it, which is, well, okay, Johnny Marr, what's his solo stuff like? Oh yeah, right, he's fronting it now, he's writing the words, all of that stuff. It's worn down now, and people are just kind of going, what is it he's doing? They're just listening. So it wasn't really that statement wasn't about what I think, it was about what everybody else thinks towards my stuff. It seems like everybody's kind of dropped their agenda now a little bit, and they're just taking the music on face value. They're just listening to it and going, okay, what is it he's doing, and listening to it rather than why is he doing it, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that I've got to that place now where people are just listening to it and just judging it alongside my peers, I guess, who would be, I don't know who my peers are really, maybe PJ Harvey, maybe Nick Cave, people like that, Pixies, people like that.
And the work stands up there for sure. There are two songs on here that sort of deal with the theme of hopefulness, which I absolutely loved. The first is Walk Into the Sea, and sort of the lines there, because hope is all I need, hope breaks on me, I don't focus. And I was also reading that Call the Comet, someone asked, well, can a comet be destructive? And you're like, I don't really focus on the destructive part of the comet, which I think is another thing that sort of encaptures that hope. How do you get that hopefulness? Has that always been a part of you?
Yeah, I think it is a part of me. I think, when I was making the record, I went in there in a fairly emotional frame of mind. I wasn't aware of it until the music started to show me that. I went to the studio to do Call the Comet in the way that I used to lock myself in my bedroom and with a tape recorder and make tapes of me playing the guitar as a teenager, which was to just block out the outside world. The album wasn't made because of a record company or my contract or my fans or my band or any of that. I mean, it is what I do, but I'd written my autobiography in 2016, and then I was promoting it into 2017, and by the time the promotion was finished, I felt really, I really needed to reconnect with making music. It'd been a year without doing a show, and also, and more pertinently, the world had changed in the UK and the US, particularly with the political scene, in a way that hurt me really, and hurt a lot of the people around me. And so I went in the studio as a kind of escape, but because I make records and I'm a songwriter, pretty soon I had a collection of songs. I was like, oh, okay, this is sounding like a record, and some of it was emotional, and because I didn't go into it thinking, okay, I'm going to make a third record. What should Johnny Marr be doing? What's going to work live? What is, all these, all of this. I just went in there, as I said, to deal with to escape from the outside world and be a musician. I found that some of them just were more emotional than they would have ordinarily been had I thought about it. So Walk Into the Sea is a very emotive piece of music, and therefore the words are kind of a little bit of an emotional narrative, and Day In Day Out is quite an emotional song, and Hi Hello is emotional, and then the other ones sort of are mostly dealing with an imagined kind of society, really, because I didn't want to talk about the actual society. I just didn't think the characters involved in real society, the political scene, were worthy of me making songs about them. So that was the way the record divided up. Really, it was all led about on me trying to escape from Brexit and Donald Trump, and determined not to write about that. But it comes out in a way, you know, the emotional effect of it comes out, and as I say, that's why I think, ironically, this is the most successful record I've had so far, solo record, and I think it's because people connect with it emotionally, you know.
No, of course. I mean, talk about a perfect time to make a record, because you have the autobiography that comes out where you've sort of gone through your entire life. You have a completely new world around you, so
Yeah.
you're familiar with the past. The present is now completely new and changed. It
Yeah.
feels like the timing was just perfect.
Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about being a musician. If you're, if like me, you kind of honor that as that's the most important thing in your life. It, you know, it leads you emotionally. So I've always tried anyway to play the sound of my feelings, and the way I feel at a certain point in my life. Sometimes, you know, sometimes it isn't necessarily emotive music. Sometimes it's kind of banging pop music, you know. But what I'm trying to say is that it kind of reflects where my life is at this point, you know, which is what I think any creative endeavor should do, really. It shouldn't be too contrived. It shouldn't be like, I've made this great idea for a new record. I can do that, and I've occasionally done that. Doesn't always work. But this is Call the Comet's been popular. It's been the most popular record, so which is kind of a fluke, I think, really.
Interesting, huh? Well, it's a great album. So many good songs in there. I want to touch back to something that you said earlier, that you kind of locked yourself out from the outside world to go and play guitar in your room. Is that easier to do now than it was when you were a kid? Has it gotten harder to be able to do that?
It's harder to do it now, yeah, because I employ a lot of people, and you know, you've got people around your record company and managers and agents and stuff like that who are well, great. I've always surrounded myself. I'm proud to say that I've always tried to surround myself with really, really awesome people. Feel pretty fortunate in that everyone around me is a good person. But you know, it's their job to keep me keep me on track. You know, and make sure that I don't go away to some Himalayan retreat for 2 years and you know, make some kind of like jazz record, which may happen at some point. But yes, to answer your question, it's trickier now because there's a lot more at stake. I've got a band. Everyone's got mortgages that need paying. You know, if you drop out too much, people forget about you. So back when I was a teenager, I had a different set of challenges. I think the frustration when I was a teenager is that I wanted to be listened to. I wanted to be heard, and I thought I had a sound, and what I was doing, some people would connect to, and it's a little frustrating. You want to be a little rock star, you know, and you want to get out there with your band, but that happened to me pretty young, to be honest. I think I was 18 when I formed the Smiths, and I was in Elvis Costello's or Nick Lowe's house, playing Elvis Costello's guitar when I was 15. So I started pretty young, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of felt like I was doing it professionally from being 15. I was in a band with adults when I was 15 who'd made a record, and so my apprenticeship started at 15, and I run my band pretty much in the same way as I run every band that I've ever run, you know.
And there's a great irony there too, that you have people to employ, yet you do some of your best, most creative work alone. And I mean, the other thing that you sort of touched on there when you were 19 and some of the challenges, I mean, you also had a writing partner then too, and now it's just you, which must be somewhat liberating as well.
Yeah, it is liberating, yeah. Especially when you sing those songs live, because those songs really mean something to me, you know. Hi, Hello, you know, Walking to the Sea, the songs I mentioned, New Dominions, they're all my concepts, you know, that I relate to them 100%, and all my solo stuff is more gratifying and satisfying for me to play. You know, the Smith stuff takes on a different kind of aspect because it's so loved and so revered. So obviously, naturally, that's it. When you play that, it kind of, those songs, they feel like a lap of honor. They feel like victory, you know, and they feel like I just feel like I'm leading everybody. It's not about me really anymore. When I play those songs, I'm leading everybody in this experience, and that is just a really beautiful thing. But as an artist, because my solo stuff are my words and my concepts and my titles and my subjects, you're right. It's more work, but like anything, when you put more work into it, when you succeed, it's much more satisfying. And I couldn't just be right now. I couldn't be the guitar player in someone's band. I have to. I've got, you know, I've got my antennae on for titles and concepts, and yeah, in some ways it's harder being the lead singer and the frontman, but it's more satisfying. Yeah.
Yeah, because you have something to say too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the songs on Call the Comet, but you alluded to, you do play some of the Smiths material at these shows, so the songs have been popping up on set lists. There's a Light, How Soon Is Now, Big Mouth Strikes Again, Please, Please, Please. What is it about these songs, and you kind of alluded to it, that makes you want to play these ones as opposed to, like, frankly, Mr. Shankly or some of the other hits that you've had?
Well, as much as I like, frankly, Mr. Shankly or any number of This Charming Man or whatever, this band wouldn't have recorded something like that. I wouldn't write something like that now. Whereas I may write something like There Is a Light with that kind of atmosphere, or I may write something like Last Night I Dreamt or Headmaster. So how I pick the songs, aside from How Soon Is Now, which I kind of feel obliged to play because it's such a signature sound of mine.
Yeah.
And it kind of works well at any time. Is my criteria is, does it go with the Call the Comet stuff?
Yeah.
So I think the songs I've been playing, Big Mouth, they do something like, frankly, Mr. Shankly wouldn't really go with my solo stuff. And as much as I admire it, I can't really relate to that lyric. And I always loved playing This Charming Man, and when I play it instrumentally on a TV show, if someone wants me to demonstrate something, then I'm really proud of that guitar part, but I don't relate to the lyrics, so I don't sing it. You know? Some lyrics I just don't relate to, and that's fine, that's okay.
Totally. And did it take you a while to find your voice in these songs as well, or was that something that came pretty naturally?
No, I don't really think it took me that long, no, because one of the reasons I went solo was because I had a sound that I liked, and I didn't want someone else to do it. It wasn't that it wasn't an ambition of mine. You know, I didn't go, all right, okay, what's on my bucket list? Be a lead singer, or what haven't I done? Front a band. It was that I wanted the next group that I was in to be a 2-guitar group, and I wanted the lead singer to play the guitar. I didn't want the lead singer to be just standing there posing with a microphone, because I wanted it to be like Wire and Buzzcocks and Television and bands like that, the only ones. Bands I grew up really liking, where the lead singer was the guitar player. But I also wanted for the front man to be the lead guitar player, which is unusual in this day and age. And these were all just instinctive things. When I was in the Cribs, I was thinking, right, what am I going to do after this? You know, I knew I wasn't going to be in the Cribs forever. And I had this song, The Messenger, and I had a song called Dynamo, and Word Starts Attack, and I knew how the vocals should be, and I didn't want someone to come in with a soulful voice.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't want someone to come in with a croony voice. I wanted someone to come in with quite a small, kind of Ray Davis-y rock and roll voice. And so all of these things that I've just mentioned all pointed to me.
Yeah.
So I just went, okay, well, I should do it then. I just didn't want to hand over my songs to someone who was going to sing differently, you know. So the sound, I already had the sound, which was the sound of my voice. That just suited these songs, you know. But I try to get better with every show. Every day I want to be a better singer. Every day I want to be a better lyricist. I want to be a better frontman. I want to be a better performer. I think I ironed out some wrinkles with the Healers in the early 2000s, and you know, people kind of know what I do now. So if they like it, they come, and if they don't like it, they don't have to come.
Well, I hope that a lot of people come tonight. If you do, you'll be hearing some great songs. A Different Gun and Bug are two off a Call the Comet that I really liked because it indirectly tackles two big issues of today, sort of the attacks in Nice and then the rise of the alt-right.
Yeah.
But it looks at it in a way that it tries to find the humanity in the situations, and it doesn't sort of focus on the gore. Have you always been one that's been able to find humanity in things? And when you're looking for that, are you looking more towards lyrics, towards the guitar? What?
That's a really good question. Yes, I am someone who looks for the humanity in it because I naturally, it's not like I'm optimistic or positive, but what you mentioned, A Different Gun, and why I wrote that song was because when I saw the news reports of the Bastille Day attack in Nice and the atrocity, my first reaction, like everybody else, was of real shock and probably anger, dismay. But because I'm an artist, seeing the bodies on the strewn on the street, and I've been on that street with fresh, clean tarmac and palm trees blowing in the wind. I got a feeling from that scenario where I was like, oh, I know what it's like as a child and as a parent to be on holiday with a warm wind blowing and with a bunch of families around me and palm trees. I know what that feels like. And then I was seeing people running around looking for their children, looking for their parents, and trying to help each other. That scenario was the thing that really struck me. And the combination of the palm trees blowing in the wind with in the warm air, with the bodies strewn around, that stayed with me for a week or two, and I wondered whether I could turn it into music, and then I wondered whether it was too crass, too sensitive, certainly how would I write lyrics that went with it, but I couldn't shake it off, and it wasn't like I was thinking this would be a good subject for a song. I kind of thought if I didn't act on this thing that I couldn't shake off, I was kind of denying my artistic impulse, really. Look, I'm an artist, you know, whether some people do it in paint, some people do it in clay, some people do it in film. I happen to do it in music and words. And it was the people running around trying to help each other that stayed with me, really. And I wondered about 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, the people who survived, what their feeling is. So I could have talked about I could have talked about the brutality of it. I could have talked about the despair. I could have talked about the futility of religious and political conflict. But what was more poetic and artistic to me was how everyone was feeling 3 weeks later, and those people running around, and all the things I've mentioned, really, which I think is more about the humanity of it. So it's just naturally what I kind of veer to, possibly because that's more poetic. So I think it's to do with being a poetic person, really, and also an empathic person. You know, if you're going to write about characters, which I often do, some people write about themselves all the time, and I often don't. I think you have to be a kind of empathic person to write about characters. Yeah. But the other song you mentioned, Bug, was like, really, that was like me being, there's a little bit of crafts, you know, songwriting craft comes into it, because I didn't want to write about you know who, you know, who runs this country at the moment. But I thought that Bug I wasn't sure whether bug in the UK. Bug is slang for a virus. I've got a bug.
Yeah,
I've
same.
Got a bug, yeah. And he fucking bugs me, right? So that was a little bit of a craftsman's thing where I just thought, Bug's. Also, Bug's a good title for a song. I don't think I've ever heard a song called Bug before. So with a bit of lateral thinking, that stayed in the back of my mind, and then I came up with a riff that I thought sounded like the Clash with me in the band. So then I think maybe because I thought it sounded like the Clash, I then wrote Bug, you know.
Well, there you go. Well, I could do this all day, but I can literally see the line outside us forming. So I'll make this my last question for you.
Jeff.
Who are you listening to right now? Who's been spinning on this tour?
Oh, good, yeah. Well, on this tour, we always listen to Magazine, the Manchester band. Listen to some Courtney Barnett.
Oh, that record is amazing.
Yeah, listen to some of this band La Luz. You know, heard La Luz?
No, I don't.
Pretty good. The opening band for his Bell Game. A lot of girls going on at the moment. Gaz Coombs' new solo record, The World's Strongest Man, we've been listening to. Let me see. We listened to some McCoy Tyner, who was John Coltrane's keyboard player. Some psychedelia. Syd Barrett. Listen to a lot of Syd Barrett. And Amon Düül, the German krautrock. So it's quite heady.
Yeah,
quite heady stuff, you know, with some new modern stuff thrown in.
Well, there you go. Well, my guest today has been Johnny Marr. If you're not listening to Call the Comet, damn it, you should be. Johnny, thank you so much for the time.
All right, Jeff. Thank you for your questions. Yeah, it's great.